Usually, I have to wait till the fall to get that level of disappointment on a Sunday. I can make the joke because I'm wearing the hat, as Zach already noted before we started this show. I'll make everybody a deal, though, Zach, okay? Because I've heard this from people, whether it's in our Discord, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's just on X. They want the intros back. They want the cold opens back. And here's my deal. I'll present it out for the masses. If the Guardians start playing better, I will start doing the intros again.
You shouldn't make the fans suffer like that. It's not their fault. Why should they suffer? Why should they not get the best of you just because the team stinks?
Well, the best of me is kind of relative to just compared to everybody else. It's sort of like this Guardians offense. What's the best of them? The best of them may be, like in the month of May, they were close to a league average offense. I can't wait to tell you what the numbers are in June. To this point, there's still, well, wait, I guess they won't play. So that'll be it for June. That'll be it for June. I can't wait to tell you the numbers that this offense has. Although I might need to mark it not safe for work. Hide the children, cover their eyes, make sure they're not there to see it.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I don't know the approach to the show today. I have given it a lot of thought. I have thought about, do I play the goofy card again and find something completely off topic? I texted you saying we should debate 90s sitcoms. Like, do we do our shtick where we, even though things look dire, we only try to speak in positives just to be different? I've thought about talking about teams that are not the 2025 team. I've thought about a lot of different things, and I've thought about, like, do we zoom out to the 30,000 foot view and evaluate the state of the franchise? Do we talk ownership? Do we talk payroll? Do we put the front office on trial? Do we put Stephen Vogt on trial? Like, and I just don't know. And I think that's it. I'm glad I feel that way. I'm glad I'm like nothing is like stoking the fire in me today, because this team, like, if you need a nap, here you go. You don't need NyQuil. You don't need whatever you take at night. Ashwagandha? I don't know.
Bless you.
Watch the Guardians offense. It is insane to me. And look, we can talk about press conferences. I have said it for years and years and years. Never, ever, ever, unless there's like it's less than 1% of the time something worthwhile or valuable should be taken away from a press conference. Not these. Nope. So we can talk about Stephen Vogt saying he believes in these guys and they're not changing a thing and blah, blah, blah. But like, nothing matters. They're just not good enough. And until they accept that, this is what you get. You get 35 innings out of 36 where you don't score a damn run. You get more errors than hits. You get the same people with the same lousy stats stepping up to the plate over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
What?
Until you're under 500.
What?
You're 9-16 in June, despite
What?
the seventh best team ERA in the league, and nobody cares anymore. That's the saddest part. Is that this time last year, you'd done such a good job to galvanize everybody. You were filling that ballpark, and they had great crowds this weekend too, don't get me wrong, but let's revisit this in like 6 weeks. And everybody was excited. You built up such a cushion that it didn't matter that you played average baseball in the second half last year. And this year, I mean, you're wearing a Browns hat. Shadur Sanders is speeding toward training camp, and here we go. Like, Brown season starts in a month. We'll talk about that. Cavs going to make more moves. Lonzo Ball. Like, it's It's incredible, and I also am fighting myself to like stop mentioning that this team was in the ALCS 8 months ago, but it's a fact. It's just incredible that they have gone from the doorstep of the World Series to irrelevance and really like a glorified rebuilding year in 8 months.
Yeah, but it doesn't even feel like a rebuilding year. Rebuilding year, there's strategic moves setting you up for the future.
Yeah, there's
there
progress.
Are things within this there are things within this organization that are setting themselves up for the future, but that was in play before this season began. A lot of it is younger players that we're screaming about wanting to see before the year is over, and I'm sure they continue on this path. We will get there eventually. The thing is, I'm not sold that turning things over to younger players doesn't actually just make you better. Whereas usually it's you play poorly, so you bring the young kids up so they can get their early hiccups out of the way, right? And it's like looking at the offense in the month of June, who could tell me it could be any worse? Because you are the worst team in baseball offensively in the month of June. Let me give you the statistics. 72 WRC plus in the month of June for the Guardians. You know where that ranks. It's last. Can you guess who the next closest team is and what their WRC plus is? 72 versus...
The Nationals had a terrible month, but they've got some good hitters, though. The Royals?
It's not the Royals. They are third to last.
The Rockies?
Not the Rockies.
The Marlins?
It's not the Marlins. You're missing the biggest
The White
stinker.
Sox.
The White Sox, yeah. So tell me what you think their WRC plus is in the month of June.
The Guardians was 72.
Mm-hmm.
That's the average. Jose had a pretty good month.
Yeah, I don't know what the median WRC plus would be.
I'll say the White Sox were at like 86.
81. Okay. But that's still, look at that. 72 to 81. That's craziness. You are that much worse than the next worst team in the month of June, and that's a team that is supposed to be bad. The Guardians are a team that had aspirations of taking this division title again and making the playoffs again. And I know you could look at any snapshot of a bad month of an offense and say that's not indicative of who they are totally. And you know what? Part of what Antonetti said, they will get better because some regression will happen here. They're going to be better than a 72. The problem is when you're at your best, and like you go back the month of May, they had a 98 WRC plus. There's not a lot here screaming, wait, hold on. Better days are on the horizon. And because baseball is what it is, because they've expanded the playoff field, they are where they're at right now. It is not impossible. In fact, there's still a shot they're going to make the playoffs this year, just because that is what the state of baseball is now.
And you know
it's
what
very
would happen?
possible.
And you know what that would mean then? That would mean that the owner in his rose-colored glasses would sit there and think that everything's peachy, everything's fine. Look, the team rebounded. It was just a slow start. Once the weather got warm, the bats warmed up, and here they go. Yeah, their team OPS plus is 86. And I feel like I've referenced this stat throughout the season. And I remember when it was like 96, and we were like, it's got to get a little bit better. And it has just gone the opposite direction. Like Siren's Curse at Cedar Point. Does that have big hills? I don't know.
Sure.
Their team slash line is 226, 298, 366. That is really similar to just Gabriel Arias' slash line. So you are essentially trotting out 9 Gabriel Arias' every night. That's not a formula to win.
And that's fine if that's like your bottom third of the lineup hitter. When that's everybody. That's everybody.
So that's the thing. And I got a lot to say. I don't even.
Oh, I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
So here's the thing. Like you can. How many guys in this lineup are you like you would, Arias' defense? Like I'd take that if he's hitting 9th. Like you're totally fine with that. That's everybody, isn't it? You say well, Bo Naylor, he's a catcher. Like I take his power, I take his walk rate. Like if he's hitting 9th and he's the least of your worries, like. You'd sign up for that maybe. Or like Schneemann, like, yeah, he's been solid against righties. Like, he's having an okay year. His OPS plus is 97. It's just a tick below league average.
He's
like,
the success story this year.
Yeah, if he's hitting ninth, like you're feeling great about him. If he's at the bottom of your order, Nolan Jones, like, yay, like he's been solid lately. Like, just so wishing he will contribute some extra base stuff here, but. He's certainly been better over the last month or 6 weeks. Like, if he's hitting at the very bottom of your order, like, and he's the least of your problems, like, you take that. Everybody is that. Everybody is the Miles Straw or the Andres Jimenez, where they do one thing really well, and that thing is not hitting. So if that person is hitting at the bottom of your order and everybody else is great, fine. It's like Omar Vizquel in the 90s lineups. Now, he shouldn't have been hitting second, as you've told us a million times, but, like, yeah, you have this elite defender at shortstop, and maybe he's not a great hitter, but like everybody else in the lineup was, so that's fine. But you can't have a full lineup of Omar Vizquels, and these guys don't play defense like that either. This team's defense has been atrocious. So we're about to flip the calendar to July here. Flipping a calendar doesn't magically make things better. A players only meeting doesn't magically make things better. A manager saying, hey, these guys are talented and I love this roster and everything's going to be fine doesn't magically make things better. Calling up Chase DeLauter doesn't magically make things better. They are who they are. And maybe who they are isn't quite as bad as who they've been in June, but I could point to whatever the hot stretch has been of this team, if there has been one, and they're not as good as that either.
Mm-hmm.
So this just looks like a lousy team that has like solid, improving starting pitching, a couple relievers I trust implicitly, and a Hall of Famer in the lineup and a good leadoff hitter. That's it. I want to believe in Kyle Manzardo. I'd like to see him get more opportunities to prove that my belief is justified. Everyone else in the lineup, I don't know, like, Lane Thomas has been a little better, but I don't see him sticking around here for the long term. So I just, where I'm at is, okay, like, I guess what I need to see the rest of the season is the rotation cement itself as the team strength, and DeLauter and Brito and Kafis, I want to see what they can do. And when I hear myself say that out loud, it's like, hey, what do you know? It's August 2023. Hey, what do you know? It's 2021. Like, this year was not supposed to happen, but I feel like everybody who was yelling about this all offseason, aka this guy, saw this coming. How did you not think that the offense was going to be an issue? Even if, because they're batting 0 on the gambles that they took. Carlos Santana, not working out. Bo Naylor, not working out. Brian Rocchio, not working out. Nolan Jones, not working out.
Well,
John Kenzie Noel, not working out.
Rocchio might be back here soon.
Yeah. So, no, like, I don't think they anticipated all of these failures, but how many of those did you anticipate thriving?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard the discussion about, and this is not, having Josh Naylor still here doesn't magically make things better, but that's kind of the point. We looked at an offense last year that had a Josh Naylor in it, and regardless of what you think of like what he did in the playoffs and consistently throughout the whole year, the entirety of the season, that sort of run creation in the middle of the lineup meant a hell of a lot to this team, okay? And he brought a lot of power. Even if he's the guy that he's been with the Diamondbacks, look at that. Look at having a 300 bat in the middle of this lineup that's very good, that's fearsome, that people have to worry about hitting behind Jose instead of cycling through, here's Manzardo, here's Santana. I have seen the discussion about, well, you should feel good that you traded him for Slade Ciccone, a guy that has shown us glimpses, and I'm very excited about what could lie ahead. And if you just look in a vacuum, that makes sense. You turn a guy that you weren't going to keep here long-term into a guy that you're going to control for quite a while, into an organization that does really good with pitching. There's a lot here to like about that, and that's fine. But the point was never just about Naylor. It was you had an offense that wasn't good enough last year, and then you subtracted from it. You took away from it for a guy.
And you did it when you were about to make the World Series. That's the issue. I have no problem with Naylor for Ciccone in a vacuum.
Yeah, or even
but
doing
when
it.
Your timeline is different. That's the problem. That's what I was yelling about all winter.
You could even do it on this timeline, though, Zach, if you then make a subsequent move, that's
Sure.
not Carlos Santana. Or
But
if
their
you bring Santana
priority
in
over the winter was to keep their finances in line, to bolster their starting pitching, which they were stressed about like crazy last year. So I give them credit. I like Ortiz and I like Ciccone. But you can't, and I had this conversation with someone in the front office over the weekend, like they don't get caught up in the Jose Ramirez is getting older and Steven Kwan's trending toward free agency, and they don't operate that way. They just operate in a vacuum where they're just trying to collect as much young, cheap talent as they can. And so, yeah, like Naylor for Ciccone is a great trade to make when you're rebuilding. And, well, I guess now they're closer to that, I guess, than to winning a World Series.
I don't even think it has to be when you're rebuilding. I think you can still be doing it when you're good, but you have to make the subsequent moves to recover from
But
the
don't do
offense
that
that you
part.
lose.
Yeah.
And you can't sell me on the total war that you bring in Santana might actually be better because he brings – okay, sure, in the total war, but what does this team need? Runs. They need people that can score runs, and you were bringing in a guy that had a good year last year in Santana offensively, sure, but then was another year older. And you're now asking him to at least be as good offensively as the guy that you're replacing in the middle of the lineup. And I know you could make a case, well, I think these guys are going to take a step forward. Sure, but that should be the added bonus on top of what you're already guaranteed in your production. You know, a guy like David Fry coming back shouldn't be, oh my God, we can't hit left-handed pitching at all. David Fry come back. How unfair is that? This dude hasn't even played it all this year. He's coming back off of an extreme surgery, and then you're plopping him in the 2-hole and the 4-hole and expecting him to just, let's go, hit the ground running, buddy. That's unfair to him. That's unfair. You should not be looking at him to save the offense. That's ridiculous.
Well, it's the same thing with Chase DeLauter. I remember having this argument last year with about Manzardo where we were saying it's the organization's fault that the fan base becomes this hornet's nest where everyone's like, call up DeLauter, you cowards. And this kid is going to be looked at to be some savior. And it puts so much pressure on him and it stirs the fan base into a frenzy when it's just because of the organizational approach here. Look, I mean, we can trace this back to the ownership's MO here. And it's not even payroll. I've said this before. I think ownership just has a rosier view of things and doesn't have that passion or killer instinct my main point over the winter was not being able to comprehend, and we'll never get this because the owner's not going to speak, but how on your way out, when you've already agreed to the minority owner and the transfer of power in the future, how do you not try to leave that impact? Like, I want an owner who wants to be the guy who helps end the curse, right? Don't you want someone in charge that has that ruthless desire to win? And maybe you don't have the deep pockets, but does anyone get held accountable for the fact that this team doesn't develop hitting and hasn't for more than a decade? They've had the worst center field and right field situations in baseball since Shin-Soo Choo was walking around here. And okay, well, we'll flip our philosophy. We'll try something else. It's like, this isn't like they've made so many missteps in recent years. And we always give them the benefit of the doubt because the front office just doesn't have a lot to work with financially. And I'll be sympathetic to that. Fine. But my God, you stockpile middle infielders, and the big thing to me, you don't trade prospects. You know, the Junior Caminero thing was just a one-off, terrible evaluation and probably luck. You just don't know a ton about an 18-year-old who's barely played, which is probably why you don't trade an 18-year-old who's barely played for Tobias Myers. But other than that, they really haven't traded prospects for big league talent. And so then it's imperative that you develop those prospects, and they haven't done that. So you got to do one or the other, and they've done neither. And that's how you get to the point where you've got this young lineup. And that's another thing. You can't fall back on we have a young roster and development's not linear, blah, blah. I mean, they've clutched onto the fact that they've had one of the youngest rosters in baseball for 5 years now. Like, we don't want to hear that excuse. That is by choice. So I just, you have to develop better, or you have to have more flexible ownership approaches or something. But you can't get to where you got last year and say, oh, well, that was a cute run. Like, but this is how we're going to stick to doing things. And no, that's not. Sometimes, like, I appreciate the wanting to take as many stabs as possible at a playoff berth method, but sometimes you have to, like, take advantage when you're there. And I don't know if I'd feel differently if this team had World Series titles in the bank, but it's also been 77 years, and that should matter to people. And I know they say they can't operate on emotion, and they can't think about history, and they can't think about, again, Jose Ramirez and Stephen Kwan and things like that. But how many times do I have to yell that you're a small market, you don't spend money, and you were given the greatest gift ever of a Hall of Fame player saying, sure, I'll spend my entire career here, and you'll never pay me more than $25 million in a season. That doesn't happen ever, right? And you're just not capitalizing on it. You'll never get that again. So if you're not going to capitalize on it now, I just don't get what we're doing here.
And it would be a different situation if it was purely just a bad year in sequencing, injury luck, something to that effect. But when it's the same problems that everyone knew was going to be a problem and continues to be a problem year after year after year, and nothing has changed, of course, we're going to start looking further up the chain. Who is responsible for this? And, this team, you have Antonetti come out Saturday morning, gets everybody in a frenzy because, oh my God, what is he doing?
Why
Everyone
was that?
forgetting the fact that he does this at least once a month.
Yeah, why was that
on the weekend
reported?
I think there's probably just when you're unfamiliar
Everyone's
with
on edge.
When you're when you're unfamiliar with how the team maybe operates and who's available and when, you could look at something like that. Usually when a GM speaks, oh my God, every other team, when the GM is speaking, he must be for a reason. In this case, it's like, I want to give the manager a day off, so I'm gonna come down here. Or in the case of on Saturday, they had more media potentially in the house because of headshots being taken. So, hey, we'll make Antonetti available because there's a few more people here. I mean, I didn't anticipate anything groundbreaking happening outside of maybe some announcement on Shane Bieber, but like that was about it. That was my only concern. I wasn't expecting anything groundbreaking.
No, TJ, you forgot he's injured, so there's no announcement. I was waiting for them to tell us that Gabriel Arias just had like a contusion.
That would have been great. I mean, it was perfect because, and I will laugh at Antonetti. He goes, I have no major announcements. Let's just get into the questions. It's like, of course you don't. Because if you follow this team for any sort of regular period, you would understand, yeah, that's probably going to be the case. But okay, so on Saturday, he comes in, he gives this big vote of confidence, and we believe in the guys that are here, and says a lot of glowing things, and I want to react to some of his comments, and let's do it in a minute. But man, this team comes out, and they're on fire for one inning. One inning. And what happens in that game? The bullpen. Is that not this team? You texted me after the game because you didn't know what else to say, but the team's bad, but they also have the bad luck, and they also have this. It's like one just total you-know-what storm blowing up in their faces.
They're also just miserable to watch. Like, you can be a bad team and be interesting, but they're dreadfully boring because they don't muster any offense. And then when they do, it's Matt Festa on the mound or Jacob Junis, and the bottom falls out. Yeah, it's. I'd be interested to hear from fans, just in terms of like. Sometimes there are good, boring teams, right? Like, there are teams that pitch really well and they win every night, like 3-1, and it's not the most entertaining baseball, but they're just really good, so it keeps you glued. sometimes there are bad, interesting teams where, maybe your pitching stinks. Or I was actually talking to someone about, I think George Schusterman of the Cespedes Barbecue. We were talking about a team that can't hit
Here's
versus
that name
a team
that you dropped.
versus a team that has a horrendous bullpen. And I said the horrendous bullpen team that's super entertaining. Like, what lead is safe? Your team's up 7-1 or something in the 8th inning, and you're still on the edge of your seat because you just don't know. I think that's entertaining. But a bad, boring base, like, this is the worst. This is the worst product you can have. And to me, like, again, that's why I can't believe on June 30th, I'm like, get me the kids. Get me something I haven't seen before. Because it can't be less interesting than this. But it's just this is brutal to watch, is it not?
Yeah, when you're 2 games below 500, but you're 2.5 out of the wild card, some of your criticism might not land to those in charge because, a good stretch away from being right back in this thing. And that's true. They are a good stretch away from being right back in this thing, but that's largely because that's what Major League Baseball wants.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've already been yelling a lot, so let's yell some more. Let's react to some of the comments from Chris Antonetti over the weekend and get everyone's blood boiling. So first up, Antonetti was asked just about the offense and the state that it's currently in.
For the last month, we haven't been at our best scoring runs, but I continue to believe in the group of players that are here and the staff that we have that's supporting them. And it's really hard to be consistently successful at the major league level for anyone, and it's really hard for a young group to do that consistently. And we are in the process of working through that, but I think as we look forward, the results will be better from here than they've been over the last month. I don't think the last month is indicative of the potential of the guys that are on the roster.
Well, yeah, look at what the numbers were. How could they be worse than that? So I don't think that is indicative totally of who they are.
I already hit bingo. Young roster, making things difficult. Oh, who assembled the young roster? Who chose to go with the youth movement after reaching the ALCS? Look, I always ask this question because I think some fans, understandably, you cling to whatever you can get, right? Coming out of a press conference, it's like when things are going wrong, bad, and people yell at me like, ask the tough questions. And it's like, it's not about the questions. It's about the answers. You don't like the answers, so you think the questions aren't tough. But you have to understand that, like, these people aren't going to. So the thing I always say is, like, what do you think? What's the alternative? Like, what do you want him to say? He's not going to get up there and say, we stink. These hitters just aren't good. Right? So that's why these are just, they're formalities. It's why, like, I certainly pick my spots, but I'm not going to be, I'm not asking questions every post game about BS because it's just, I mean, look, the manager, and it's a tough spot for a manager. Like, it's part of the job, but like, what's he going to say? This is the guy who said he didn't pinch hit for Austin Hedges earlier in the year because Austin Hedges is a good hitter. Austin Hedges is a great dude, a great quote, a great leader, and he's got a 468 OPS. So, like, he's the guy who said
far less about what Vogt says about that.
Vogt has repeated over and over in the last few weeks, we didn't look like ourselves tonight. But, like, how many times do you say that before that's who you are? Mm-hmm. You are yourselves. You're not the version, like, they're clinging to the 2024 version, and that doesn't exist anymore. And, so when you hear, like, yeah, like, they're going to be better, like, we believe in them, and this isn't us. Well, no, it is. That guards, they put guards ball on the scoreboard. I wrote about this on The Athletic today. Every afternoon, they have, like, a Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of guards ball on the scoreboard. It's got the phonetic spelling, the part of speech. It's a noun, by the way, and a 2-part definition. And it talks about gritty, relentless effort on the base paths, and, like, fans refer to it as chaos and all this. And it's like, are you talking about the 2025 team? No, you should have put this on the scoreboard last year or in 2022. This year's team makes tons of errors. They are super sloppy. They don't run the bases like their hair's on fire. And they don't hit. They don't play small ball. They don't play big ball. They don't.
And you know that thing that was their identity a couple of years ago. They're going to put the ball in play. They're going to make a lot of contact. In the month of June, they're one of the worst teams in strikeouts too, by the way. So whatever identity there that was once built on, though, I do have to call you out here for you're the one that always hates anyone that starts an article with insanity is defined as, and here you go, guards ball is defined as breaking your own rule. I know Antonetti pointed to the pitching in this press conference and asked about Carl Willis. He went on for like 20 minutes because he was desperate to talk about anything he actually likes right now. He pointed to the pitching and said, if we go back a month ago, everyone was concerned about this rotation and look at all the strides they've taken. And sure, I'll listen to that. There's some truth there, but I actually believe in your ability to make good pitchers. And maybe if they're not even recreating another Kluber and another Bieber, but I believe in your ability to make sure you get at least what they got in them. And you're not going to be one of the worst teams forever in pitching because I believe in your ability there. You don't earn that benefit of the doubt in hitting. You haven't earned that, sir. And once you earn that, sure, I'll listen to, just give them some more time because we're going to work through it. But you don't have any evidence of making it work for any longer than a brief moment here or there.
And that's the thing, is now we're clutching onto, and what they should be clutching onto is hoping that DeLauter flips the narrative, that he shows some evidence that maybe they can develop hitting. Maybe because you don't get the full scope until years after the fact, right? You think that you've changed what you've needed to change in the minor leagues, and you've made these strides to better understand how to develop hitting. You've tried to mirror what you do on the pitching side, but then you're waiting for the kids to climb through the system and get to the majors, and it takes a few years to prove whether or not you can stick, right? And by that point, you're like, oh my God, do we have to go adjust our process again and then wait 5 years to see if we got it right? So can DeLauter, can Brito, can CJ Kafis flip that narrative? Because I think that's what they're clinging on to. I think that's what we're all clinging on to at this point.
You tell me what year this quote came from.
Our success is going to be dependent upon the players that are in the clubhouse and they're in the organization. Whether or not there's a player to that come into the organization or a player or two that leave, like that's not going to tell the story of our season. It's going to be about how does a group of guys and players that are here do in continuing that progression and continuing that development and hopefully helping us win a lot of games for the balance of the season.
Okay, so I want this on the record.
Okay.
I was prepping a story about 10 days ago, and the story was going to run on July 1st, and it still might. I don't know yet. But the story was 4 phrases I guarantee you'll hear uttered by Cleveland's brass in July. And it doesn't even have to just apply to Cleveland either, because I think a lot of teams lean on these, or some of them. And I'm just going to give you the 4. One of the, and this is word for word what I had written. This is 10 days ago. I just want this out there that I had this first. 1, quote, our success will largely depend on the young players we already have here. Did he not just say that? But he said it in June, so I don't know if that counts. 2, getting Shane Bieber back is better than just about any trade we can make. You think we'll hear that one?
You got to get him back.
Yeah.
Well, they
3,
get him back before they trade him.
3, I think he already kind of said this. We have a young roster, and with that comes bumps in the road. And 4, we have to consider the long term while also trying to balance the near term as we thread the needle of contending and developing.
There you go. Hand in that bingo card. This next one, I don't want to beat up too much on him because this guy is not the problem, but this quote, I'm tired of hearing it.
Bo's shown he's capable of being a really productive major league player. And as hard as it is for any young position player to be successful in the major leagues, it's even more difficult for a catcher to do that because of the physical demands of the position. I'm guessing if you ask Bo, there's probably not been a day since opening day where he's felt 100%. So to his credit, he's extraordinarily tough, and he continues to put in all the work to be that productive player we know he's capable of being. The additional responsibilities that he has as a catcher, and how he's led the pitching staff has not wavered, and the fact that he's been able to help, and he's been a big part of that pitching group making progress over the last couple of months. The fact that he's been able to do that and separate his offense out from that's a great credit to Bo.
Okay, Zach. Again, I don't mean to just pick on Bo, because there have been times where he's actually helped this offense. I mean, the batting average this year is weird. But there have been times where he's actually been productive. Okay? So let me get that out of the way. I have nothing against him personally, and there are far bigger problems than just Bo Naylor's offense. But it's this quote. I'm so tired of hearing it. Well, he doesn't take his offense with him to the defensive side, and there's a lot for any young catcher to go through as they're trying to lead a staff and also get good at the major league level. And yes, I understand that. But damn it, Zach, it's true of every effing catcher that comes up. Everybody. What catcher doesn't have to put their offense aside to then go focus on the defense? That's the name of the job. That is what you're supposed to do.
So what would Cal Raleigh's stats look like if he was just a DH?
I'm tired of giving guys credit for just doing what they're supposed to do as a catcher. I'm tired of doing that. And maybe it's just because I've heard this quote 7 billion times over the years when they have catchers that just can't hit. But I'm tired of giving guys credit for it. That is what you're supposed to do. Let's all call it out for what it is. You, as the catcher, you're supposed to put your offense aside, and you're also still sort of supposed to be productive behind there, not just be an automatic out for somebody. So I'm done giving people the credit for doing what they're supposed to do from that position.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but does some of your frustration stem from the fact that, like, Yan Gomes won a Silver Slugger? So you knew it was in there. It was possible for him to be a really good hitter and also a really good defensive catcher. Roberto Perez hit 24 home runs in a season. So you knew that was in there. Like, it's possible to excel in both areas. And Bo Naylor, we've seen him. I mean, I don't know how long we can point back to the last 6 weeks of 2023, but even in the minors, like, he's shown with his athleticism and the speed and the power combination that he's got it all. We just haven't seen it for more than those 6 weeks in 2023. So I think that adds to the frustration where this isn't asking Austin Hedges to hit 280. This is a guy who you think it's in there. And that's why, to me, I was going to ask you just the single player who's been most disappointing this season. Is it Bo Naylor just because of what we all hoped and thought was possible?
Yeah, I guess you could make this. I could make the point. So it depends based on how I approach it. Just in terms of the growth not made, Brian Rocchio, Bo Naylor, yeah. Seeing nothing built on last year at the end, postseason-wise for Rocchio. Naylor just... This season, even if it's been better at times, is not good enough to carry being an everyday catcher in my eyes. Yeah, but I'm also like, look at the season that Lane Thomas has had, partially snake-bitten and injuries, but also when he's been on the field, he's just been awful. Absolutely brutal. So I think you could come at this from a few different directions. All right, main event time. The guy that everyone wants to know. Chase DeLauter, what's going on there?
Yeah, Chase has made great progress. I think we were candid in sharing one of the big objectives with him is being able to just increase the total volume that he's able to play. And we had a very deliberate build up in that volume. And there were times where he was, as we increased the volume, where his body was more sore than it had been in the past. So we had to pull things back. I think really for the first time, he's now at a point where he's been able to play and absorb the volume of playing 5 or so days a week, and not have it impact him negatively and impact his recovery. So it's exciting to think about the progress he's made physically and where he's moving towards in that realm, and then combine that with the production we continue to see when he's on the field, because he's now really for the first time making himself an option for us to consider.
Okay. So that last phrase is important. I was talking to some people over the weekend, and not that this is going to be mind-blowing stuff, but the people in the major league level regularly gather a report on a prospect's progress to see if they're ready for the next level, ready for a promotion, right? And it's not even just ready for the major leagues, because if Chase DeLauter comes up, then there's an opportunity in AAA for maybe someone else to come up. And a lot of times you see the whole trickle-down effect through the system, right? And so they were working on their latest iteration of this with DeLauter literally like Friday, Saturday. So he's going to be up very soon. I have no doubt about that. We've talked at length about, we've refuted every excuse that they've made, that they could make, like, just get him up here. And that's with us admitting, like, he may struggle. That's okay. It's not his fault. That's what happens. And that doesn't mean you don't call up prospects. There are people who make these arguments, and it's like, so should you just never call up a prospect for eternity? Chase DeLauter should just buy a 30-year mortgage in Columbus? Like, I don't understand the arguments here. If he's going to struggle, let him get it out of the way early. Let him learn from the failure. Okay? I talked to our buddy Nick Goody over the weekend plenty about this, and he was talking about how when he first came up with, he was up with the Yankees. When he first came to Cleveland, he had like a 20-inning scoreless streak to start 2017, and he was so tight, and he was so just trying to be perfect and trying to not give up a run because he felt like he had to prove he had minor league options, but he didn't want to go back down. And he's like, oh, I can't give up a run or they're going to send me down. And he finally gave up a run, and he was just kicking himself. And he gets back to the dugout, and he's told us this story before, TJ, but Tito was like, you good to pitch again tomorrow? And Goody's like, I don't normally pitch back to, but you haven't asked me to do that yet. And Tito's like, you're good to pitch tomorrow. It was his way of saying, just because you gave up a run doesn't mean you're going anywhere. Players need to learn from failure. Players need to go through the big league experiences and get all those firsts out of the way, get the looking over my shoulder out of the way. Kyle Manzardo was much better the second time than the first, but he had to go through the first to be better the second time. Some guys come up and thrive and never have to go back down. You don't know. You got to get the kid up here when he's ready, and it's time to take off the training wheels. But the main thing here is I'm trying to figure out, okay, like I have good intel that says this guy's, Antonetti said it right there, right? Like he's worked his way into the conversation. He's not going to admit that if they're not going to call him up till August 1st, okay? So there's that. So then I'm thinking, all right, well, we're all playing this game where the manager hates the word platoon, right? So and yet they platoon more than everybody. I'll come back to that in a second. So you're thinking, okay, well, Chase DeLauter's probably not going to come up if they're facing a bunch of lefties. And lo and behold, they get Matthew Boyd and Shota Imanaga this week in Chicago. So does that mean that he's not going to come up against the Cubs? Is he going to come up Friday night against the Tigers on July 4th with Skubal lurking, I think maybe Saturday? I don't know. Point is, it doesn't matter. Call him up. Let him face a lefty if you have to. He's torched them in the minors. He's torched everybody in the minors. Call him up and sit him and bring him off the bench one day. Like, it doesn't matter. For a team that claims they hate platoons, they use them 77% of the time. 77%, 3 out of every 4 plate appearances, they have a hitter facing the opposite-handed pitcher. Do you know the league average platoon advantage percentage? 54%. So as bad as the offense has been, they always have the platoon advantage. Maybe that tells you just play the hitters who are hitting. Just play Kyle Manzardo against lefties. Give Schneemann a chance. Like, you don't need to shoehorn Jonathan Rodriguez into the lineup just because he's right-handed. I'm right-handed. Hit me eighth. Like, the second-ranked team in platoon advantage is the Nationals, who also stink, and they are 68%. So, again, a team that claims we don't care about platoons, 9% more platoons than any other team, and it hasn't mattered. So Chase DeLauter hits lefty, doesn't matter. Get him up.
Think about how much more he could learn about himself just from getting that promotion. Get all the firsts out of the way. Get him out, all the nervousness of, where do I go? Where's the clubhouse? What's this like? Get all that out of the way. The old Adam Simbers story where he turned a corner and he was in a janitor's closet. He didn't know where he was supposed to go. Get all that stuff out of the way.
They wouldn't let Mike Clevenger in the ballpark in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm pitching tonight, though. And then he's vomiting everywhere.
I need to get into the stall so I can get all my throw up out. I'm so nervous here. And you also have, like, I don't want to hear about managing workloads because you also have 3 outfielders for 2 spots that you want to rotate. It's right there in front of you.
There you go. Done.
Not difficult at all. I know Antonetti talked about that too. You need to have the opportunity to play Jonathan Rodriguez. Shut up. That's not worthwhile to me. Doesn't make any sense. And quite frankly, we need to be done yelling about it because it's stupid. Nobody can be sold any other way.
It was mentioned to me, like, the players who might lose at bats if they call up DeLauter. Like, Santana was on the list. And the LeBron James gif where he's like, oh, no.
All right.
Do you feel better?
No. In honor of that text you sent me yesterday that you wanted to talk about anything other than Guardians, and we wasted 45 minutes talking about this baseball team. I threw it out on YouTube.
No, this is supposed to be therapy for fans who need it after watching their team get shut out 3 times in 4 games.
Who is therapy for us? Who listens to the therapist? Whose couch do they hop on and talk about all of their problems? So with that happening, I thought to end the show, let's do a little rapid fire, totally random questions that came in from our YouTube audience. I threw it out on YouTube in our post section, and we got a lot of questions. Some of them related to Guardians, but not all of them. So first one came from Ben, favorite Buckeyes running back of all time. You think about that. I'm going to go Pepe Peterson.
I have a bobblehead of Hopalong Cassidy somewhere.
It's always like
How about Lydell Ross?
Okay. Peterson is like, when I first started paying attention to Ohio State football, he was the running back. So you always remember the guys on the original teams. And Joe Germain cycling through being the 2-quarterback system with what was Stanley Jackson, the other quarterback. Was that who I'm thinking of?
I'll go Beanie Wells. Claret's one season was unbelievable. That's all.
Big Chillin'. What did you guys have for lunch every day growing up? Did your parents pack you the same thing? Did you get cafeteria food?
Like in school?
Yeah, I think that's what he means. I will admit I was a tough one to pack for because what I liked one day, I didn't necessarily like every single day. My stepdad used to call it the zigzag rule in the house, which is like you always think it's one thing, but then when you plan for the one thing, that's when the kid wants the other thing, and that was me. So just because I liked having a cheese sandwich one day doesn't mean I want to have it every single day. So I think I was guilty of getting the same thing packed every single day because there was an assumption that I liked it, but maybe I wanted something different on that particular day.
So I really don't remember very well, but I do remember freshman year of high school. I had the worst lunch period. We were like the earliest one. We ate lunch like 10:30, and I didn't want a meal. So they had like this area where you could get fresh baked cookies and smoothies, and I would eat a big M&M cookie and a smoothie every day. And
habits were formed early.
Yeah, on the track.
Can see why your actions are what they are when you get to Yankee Stadium every single year.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
This will really blow anyone's mind today, but I loved in school this is like when I was really young, first grade through, I don't even know, fifth grade, sixth grade. At our school, they didn't have the capabilities to make lunch there every single day. They would do one day of the week was the hot lunch that they would make there, and it would just be the mothers. Like my mom would come in one day a month and help make the food. But the other days of the week, there was a Papa John's day, there was a McDonald's day, there was like a Taco Bell day, and they would bring in. Can you imagine telling Michelle Obama this? They would bring in fast food for the kids, and you would pay for it in advance. So it'd be like $1 for one piece of Papa John's pizza, and it was like the coolest thing ever. You would have McDonald's brought in. You get a 4-piece nugget and a small fry. It was amazing.
You're just like a first grader eating a McRib.
God, I wish. All right, next is Kay Butcher. Favorite cartoon from your childhood?
Ooh. Can I go like Hey Arnold?
Absolutely, yeah. I see clips from that show pop up on TikTok every now and again, and it's fun to revisit shows where they would mix in when I say mature, I don't mean like mature. I mean things that make more sense to you as an adult into young children's shows.
I think Bluey does that really well.
Yes, yeah, certainly. But there was like...
I swear Bluey's mom is having an
here.
affair with Lucky's dad, but that's conversation for
Save
another
that for
day.
the conspiracy theory section of this show. My favorite was definitely Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All about that. Also, The Real Ghostbusters. There was a cartoon, but they had to call it The Real Ghostbusters because there was another Ghostbusters. I didn't want to get any sort of confusion here. So I had to say The Real Ghostbusters. I loved that cartoon. Yeah, Hey Arnold. I remember that one. That was a good one. We were in the golden age. Well, I guess people a little older than us would say, well, we had the golden age of cartoons. I don't know. I think our cartoons were pretty phenomenal. Animaniacs. That show is still funny today. You can go back and watch that show, and hilarious stuff there.
Kids they don't know like that late 90s, early 2000s Nickelodeon lineup.
WB Kids. Batman, the animated series. Fantastic. The Spider-Man animated series was awesome.
You're losing me.
We had it made, dude. We had it made. Jay Fagan, Guilty Pleasures episode. The worst foods, music, movies, and more that you're embarrassed to love as much as you do. Give me a food that you're embarrassed to admit that you love. I don't think there has to be guilty pleasures. I think you just like what you like.
Yeah, I don't know. Broccoli? What's an embarrassing food to like?
I love broccoli. Broccoli's great.
What's the Nickelback of vegetables?
Cauliflower?
Asparagus?
I know people get upset when they make like the cauliflower wings. So you make them look like boneless wings, but they're actually not. But spoiler alert, I think they're kind of good.
Yeah.
I won't ask you.
For music, I would say Coldplay. I'm usually listening to Coldplay when I write.
That's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
That really is embarrassing, actually.
Great live show, though. Jordan Bastian and I saw them on a whim at the Seattle Seahawks Stadium in 2017.
You know what kind of annoys me? Like I could say, well, there's some Nickelback songs that I like or Creed songs that are great, but like this has happened even with things that you get made fun of for in grade school and high school. Oh, you like that television show? Oh, you like superheroes? That's so nerdy. And today, like that is accepted. I think
Creed
everybody
rocks.
should get bullied for the things that they like we did. Kidding, obviously. I don't advocate for that. Favorite vacation spot comes from Pat.
Maui.
Sure. I don't know if it would be my
You
favorite,
gonna
but
bully me for liking Maui?
I'm just saying, like, yeah, sure.
I mean, it depends. Like, what's the vacation? Maui
course
is
it does.
probably the answer, but honorable mention to Las Vegas. I miss you.
Every year we go to Myrtle Beach, pretty much. But this year, coming up in like a week and a half, be at Disney World.
Don't you wish it was this past week?
Our kids' first time there. Where should I broadcast from? The Princess Castle What is that? Cinderella's Castle? What is that?
Friend of the show, John Fanta, was texting me the other day. I like embarrassing him, but he texted me, the Guardians were in Chicago this week, and he says, if you've never been, you got to go to Au Cheval, which is like the most famous burger spot in Chicago. So I fired back, hey, if you've never been, like next time you're in Disney, make sure you go to Magic Kingdom.
Anthony wants to know.
Never been to Cleveland, make sure you check out Slimans.
Anthony wants to know that you'd be the guy to ask. Is Jack's Casino worth going to as a visitor after a ball game on a Friday night?
I haven't been in a while.
Yeah, same for me.
So I don't know. I don't know what it's like now. I know that in 2012, is that the year it opened? There were like 4 reporters, I might have been included, who went after every single home game. We thought we had figured out how to win at roulette. I'll just say that. Spoiler alert. We were wrong.
All right, we got to fly through these because you got another show to do. I'm Sethi with Nolan Arenado rocking the flip-up shades. Who are some players that should follow his lead? Piece of baseball swag that we've sorely missed the last decade. Did you ever wear the flip-up shades when you were playing?
No.
I had a pair. I wore them like once. I couldn't get used to them, and I disposed of them.
I was the guy with the sunglasses on the hat who dropped the pop-up.
Corey, if Zach had to live the movie Freaky Friday with another Cleveland beat reporter, who would it be and why is it Hoynesy?
Paul Hoynes, for sure.
Close second, Jeff Shadell.
Jeez. Fun fact, Paul Hoynes, for the New York trip a few weeks ago, in New York is like the easiest place you could fly direct out of Cleveland, and he flew through Chicago on the way there and through Baltimore on the way home. So if you wanted to make me suffer, you'd Freaky Friday me with him.
There's actually some good questions within here that I will file away for a later date, like actual legitimate questions, but that's not what we wanted today. Like Guard Dog wants to know our opinions on the economic and political state of the world. Please be as detailed and specific as possible. You got to subscribe to Patreon for that. You don't just get that given away for
free. We need to create a new tier for that one.
Moving 7R37. Is a bagel a sandwich? If you don't have a second slice of bread, is it still a sandwich?
I don't know. A hot dog is a soft taco. That's my one and only take.
Your game day routine. What's your game day routine? Strick19 wants to know.
Chug like 6 coffees. Eat anywhere but press dining, and pray.
Donald has a conspiracy theory. The Browns and now the Guardians are in cahoots with the beer distributors to get all the fans drinking because of their bad play, driving us insane and never winning. Final one.
It's actually
Chip.
smart. The syntax is on what? Alcohol and cigarettes. And the more you watch these teams, the more you want alcohol and cigarettes.
Chip, last one. Favorite Cleveland sports name? For them, it was Webster Slaughter, which is a fantastic sports name. I'll say Benjamin Gay. Ben Gay is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'll go Spurgeon Wynn. Have you ever met another Spurgeon?
Can't say that I have.
Have you ever met a quarterback named Wynn who went like 0-8?
Again, not that I can think of. There are some good questions here on YouTube, and I'm going to save them all for later this year when maybe people don't want to hear us yelling about the offense anymore. Go down there in the comments. Let us know.
I think they're going to make the playoffs, though. I think they're going to get a wild card.
Also, they could say, see, everything was fine.
They're in second place. Cut them some slack.
Yeah. Could be where the Twins are, the Royals. Nowhere to go from here, but